I'd like to call the meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Council as the sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Port Harbor Internal District to a special meeting for November 3rd, 2025 to order at 5:11 p.m. Roll call, please.
District 1 is absent. District 2? District 3?
Present.
District 4? District 5? District 6? District 7? And District 8? Let the record reflect that District 9, you're here, okay. Sorry about that. Let the record reflect that all members are present except Councilmember Edwards, who is absent.
All right, first item, please. Introduction.
2, introduction of ordinances and resolutions.
We have 2, a resolution to enter into an executive and execute a memorandum of understanding with Plaquemines Parish government regarding funding for the Pointe-a-la-Hache Access Road project and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. A resolution terminating the employment contract with Charles Tillotson, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District for cause and otherwise to provide with respect thereto, and that is it.
All right, 3A1, due to technicality, will be withdrawn for this meeting and was just introduced and will be voted on at the November 13th meeting. So, next item, please.
B, discussion on the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District 2024 audit findings. Commissioner Schultz.
All right, so what we're going to do is go through each of these findings, and like a normal meeting, we'll open it up after each one to the public. If they have any questions or comments, then I guess administration will give their finding and response, then we'll open up to public, and then us if we have any questions or comments about particular finding. Does anybody have an objection to that style format?
I'd like to make sure we're running the clock.
Yes, we'll run the clock. Thank you for that. Oh,
Yeah, we both did it.
all right. Yes, we'll run the clock. And we'll set 5 minutes. No, what is it? 5 minutes, yeah. For-
5, 10 for us.
Yes, 5 for the public, 10 for us. All right. Ms. Tillotson, you want to take the floor and basically go over?
Yeah, yes, please. And if we can put the presentation up, please. Okay, greetings, Commissioners. As we dig into the findings from the 2022 audit, I think one of the things that I would like to say right up front is I embrace the findings, and I see the findings in this audit as an opportunity for the port to improve. But when I saw this graphic, I wanted to share this graphic at least, with the commission, because I think that it is pretty representative of when we're doing our day-to-day business in the port. I mean, we are balancing, requirements, rules, standards, governance, regulations, policies, the law. And with balancing all of that, we're always working to try to be transparent. And so that really is part of just our daily practice. So I'd like to at least frame with one slide here, just kind of frame up the audit discussion. And first off, I mean, as I view the findings as a serious matter requiring priority focus over the next 6 to 12 months. And despite efforts to develop new policies and improve execution, the Louisiana Gateway Port continues to struggle with process control as a system, impacting financial and accounting management effectiveness. The port is experiencing a good problem, in my opinion, which is rapid growth, new technology deployment, and evolving policies. But process control continues to be a consistent challenge for the port. I mean, I acknowledge that, I embrace that, and this is a conversation that I am having with the port team. Now, the complication is we operate in a civil service system where the Louisiana Gateway Port falls under that just does not, facilitate the talent acquisition, speed of business delivery to support the growth that we're challenged with. I think the fast-paced expansion, policy development, technology deployment, it have outpaced the team's ability to achieve meaningful improvements. And this is really part of why we see several of these findings today. So, I mean, the thought that I would at least like to frame the conversation up as we go into the individual findings is, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And I think that it is very important for me to point out that, in front of me I have all of the port's policies and procedures, which is very substantial, and all of these policies and procedures are less than 2 years old. So this has been a constant effort. I mean, you're talking administrative and personnel, comprehensive IT, accounting and finance, a new procurement policy that we just added, operations and maritime. We got a 2025 vulnerability study, and we also have our civil service employee handbook. And then to my right, I also have our strategic planning and analysis information, which includes our master plan, which was 2024, our market study, which was 2023, our economic impact analysis, our Navy business case analysis, and it also includes our capital improvement program. So we have, policies and procedures, and we have planning and analysis. But again, it really comes down to, if you don't have the proper system, it is very difficult to be successful and drive continuous improvement at the level that you need to drive it with the resources that we have in front of us. So
I want to stop you right here before we even get to the first finding. So today I was copied on the email from Civil Service, which you reference here, about not being able to have the staff and everything. But today I received an email from Civil Service saying that we have yet to complete, I think it was 6 employees' evaluations. And one of the things that Director Lambert pointed out is, how are they supposed to know what they're doing wrong if they don't know? So you're talking about not having the employees, but then we're not even, the upper staff aren't even doing their responsibilities in filling out the employee evaluations at over 60 days past due. I think it was August 31st was the due date. And based on that email, it was sent 7 times. Today was the 8th time that they followed up on this. So to start off with this type of attitude after the email I saw earlier today, like I said, how are the employees supposed to know they're doing wrong if they don't have their evaluations done? So that's all I'm going to add. I mean, I was not expecting civil service to even be brought up on the first slide, but I'll forward the email to all the other commissioners, but I was copied as chairman. But 6 employees still don't have it 90 or 60 days late, and there was 7 dates that Director Lambert referenced that she tried to follow up on this, and the response I got was it was going to be done today. Was that submitted today as I requested?
So this is actually in the accounting and finance department, so they've been really focused on the audit and the budget, and that will be complete. The rest of the performance evaluations are complete. The performance evaluations for the senior executive team, those evaluations are complete. And let me just make sure that I clarify, when I talk about the challenge with civil service, I am not bashing civil service. I think that one of the experiences that the port has encountered over the last 6 months, once Ms. Bell joined the team, is that we actually have a collaborative relationship now, but it takes a long time. For example, we have a director of IT position that has been on the books for over a year that we're actually trying to get filled. Now, we started with one title. It's kind of snowballed into some other things, but that's really what I'm referring to in terms of filling those needs that we know we're identifying clearly in advance and getting those positions filled. So I want to be very clear. I am not bashing civil service. Director Lambert and I have a good relationship. I think she's doing a good job. And the evaluations, myself and Ms. Glapion, we talked about it today. And when will those be complete?
Those will be completed. Those will be completed tomorrow, as 2 of those employees were not in the office today and therefore not able to sign their documents today. That's why they are not being turned in today.
All right.
So as I move into each individual finding, Mr. Chairman, I'm not really sure how you want to handle it. If you want me to kind of go through the finding and then you open it up for questions, or if you want to go through everything and then open it up for questions.
So we're going to go through the finding and then the management response. I'm, again, not thrilled because in last week's pre-board meeting, I said I want the whole finding published, not the summary, because I'm looking at the first one. The cause is a paragraph while the actual finding is a page and a half. But we'll make do because I'm not canceling the meeting because we need to have this discussion. But I outright said I want the whole finding listed in that pre-board meeting. So we'll go through the finding, management response, and then open it up for comments from audience and commission.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and my apologies that I do not have the entire document here. And I think for the sake of getting us out of here within a couple of hours, if I had the entire document and we had to read through the entire document, I think we would really kind of lose, some of the intent behind what the cause was and a management response that I think that should be very responsive to what it is that we need to fix.
Okay.
So in finding number 1 was the expenditure beyond contract limits. So the cause was the exceptions resulted from inadequate contract management controls, lack of oversight of contract expiration dates and spending limits, and insufficient coordination between administrative, procurement, and finance functions. Staff relied on vendor invoicing without verifying compliance with contract terms, and procurement personnel did not enforce documentation requirements for competitive quotes. So, first off, the port staff failed to provide proof to the auditor when asked for information, and that is a problem within itself. So that is something that we will be working on in the future. But what we've done since then is we have adopted a new procurement policy that was adopted last month in September 2025. Ms. Glapion has also implemented automated budget tracking and approval workflows to flag expenditures approaching contract limits. So that's in place now. And then the plan is to conduct regular contracts compliance training for staff involved in procurement and finance. And I'd just like to point out that the overpayments identified were for services or items allowed under the contract, but at an additional cost. And all items and services that were ordered or purchased were within the spending thresholds. I think the challenge here was for our IT vendor, we have a monthly fee of what we pay for that IT service and what we pay for cybersecurity service. But that contract did allow for the IT vendor to purchase IT-related equipment for the port. So, for example, we had to make a repair on the mobile command center, right? We had to purchase some IT supplies for our MSOC, which is our Marine Safety Operations Center. We purchased laptops, and what we did was we used this vendor to purchase these supplies and materials, which was in addition to the monthly fee. And perhaps we should have made that clearer in the contract, and when that question was asked on why, perhaps we should have been able to point to that clause in the contract and connect those dots. Unfortunately, we did not. I agree that, we need to tighten up our processes here, and so we have had some internal discussions between myself and Ms. Glapion and the staff, and we are working on that. Ms. Glapion, would you like to add anything to that?
This is with the new system we were putting in advance into process right now. We'll be taking, like, as Mr. Tillotson said, with our new processes, they are entering those items at the contract prices. So our system is now tracking that. Previously, it wasn't being entered at a contract price. So as new invoices were coming in, someone had to manually check that outside of the system. So now that is a system control that has been put into place to monitor those issues.
So I want to take full responsibility for this, because it should have been clear that those outside purchases, when the question was asked, pointing right to that place in the contract, but it should have also been clear on the front end, and possibly we could have made some estimates in our budget on what those items were going to cost. Now, what I will say is the purchases of those items did not exceed our budget for those IT-related supplies. So I'm open to any questions.
All right. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the commissioners? Mr. Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While you all correct, Mr. Schultz, about asking for the full report on here, it was the full report that we all have right here, that I have, and I know it was emailed, all the findings were emailed to all the commissioners, the full 1.5 pages as you referenced. So it was, each commissioner has it, and I believe I'm gonna ask for your legislative audit expertise here. Is it public? Is it out in the public for public record?
Yes, it is public record because
And I know you did ask. So
it was sent to us, but it's not on the LLA's website as of Friday. It might be today because normally they publish on Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
So, but it is public record. Anybody can request it at any point.
Okay. We do have it, the full findings. That's all. Thank you. I yield.
Yes. Any other commissioners before I speak? All right. So okay. So my notes from going through the whole finding is that was past expiration, no quotes. One of the things that says there was contract, it says, however, the district could not provide documentation the annual contract for IT services was ever signed. The district could not provide a contract at all. Okay? We'll get to that whatever. The main thing here is also it's a repeat finding from last year. So we got your responses. One of the things that concerned me was that we changed it to month, so now it's under my approval authority. Okay? So we talk about adopted September 2025 procurement policy. That is new. This is the policy from September of 24 with an effective date of May 3, 2024. Procurement and Public Works. In our policy last year. I have notes throughout this policy, mainly where it says after the commissioners approve it, the executive director shall sign it. It was never signed until 2025 was where it was referenced that it was finally signed. Also, talking about breaking it down to month where it's under your approval authority, it clearly, and this is state law, that the procurement team shall not separate or divide any procurement into smaller portions in order to avoid or which would have effect of avoiding this policy or mandatory law. That's on page 33. If we say we have a thing, page 25 says exactly where we're supposed to maintain all records of the contract. SharePoint, and it says out. So I just don't get that we're saying we have to update our policy, but our policy addresses some of this stuff already back in May of '24. So I get that, okay, we might have to make some, and it even says that shall be reviewed and updated as necessary every 2 years. So we're already updating it a year later because we're saying that it's not in there. But a lot of this stuff that would go to address these things is already in our policy. I mean, I have multiple page numbers that reference every little part of the finding that would have solved the issue. So that's my response to finding one. I mean, my main concern is it's a repeat finding where we're not following Louisiana bid law, plain and simple. You're saying that, oh, well, it's extra things, but and basically somewhere in there that you say, yeah, we agree, we're going to change our policy. Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, I actually agree with you, Mr. Chairman, and this is something that I spoke with the staff about today. This is something that we really have to tighten up, and when we adopt a new policy, I had this exact conversation at about 9:30 a.m. this morning. We have to make sure that we're timely in executing that. But more importantly, we have to make sure that we build a system where what's in our policy is actually what we really do. So you make a very valid point, and I can't deny it. And I acknowledge the finding here, and I accept responsibility for it.
Right. Mr. Jursich.
Yes, I'm already seeing a trend right here that every time a mistake was made, you're going to change policy to fit your schedule, the way it looks. You're going to fit it to fix your problem. You got policies you didn't follow. We're already starting on this. And you're not going to change policy to fit policies you broke because you made a mistake. So I don't want to hear this change policy too many more times to fit what you need. I yield.
Thank you. Any other comments on finding number one? Ms. McCarty, or are you in or not? Yes or no?
My comments are more of a general comment. I don't know whether, Mr. Chairman, to say them now or later.
It's on, we're going to do it on finding, and then if we can have a summary at the end, if that's,
Okay.
I mean, I have a summary at the end, so, I mean, it's your call if you want to talk about it now or at the end. It's your comments, if you want to wait now or at the
Okay.
end.
I will reserve right now and then take
All
more
right.
notes. Thank you.
Finding two.
So, grant administration. Okay, this occurred because the district relied solely on contracted grant administrator to handle compliance responsibilities without establishing internal monitoring procedures or ensuring retention of official grant records. And what this is referring to is grant administration, the perception that the grant administration weakness with the official records being held at a off-site location as being there was no control over the records, but they were off-site and the records were under control. And I heard the auditor loud and clear that we should not have our records off-site. We should have them on-site. So, you know, I think on the management response, our staff did not clearly provide proof of having control of those grant files to the auditor when the auditor asked that question. However, what we determined after that through our grant administrator was that we did have control of all of those files, but it was kept in a off-site office. So in response to that, what the port is planning to do is assign a dedicated port grant administrator to provide port training on federal and state grant requirements. So part of what we're doing to improve our process is to make sure that we have oversight over our port security grant administrator, which is Ms. Carol Fitch, who, by the way, does a fabulous job. She does port security grants for other deep water ports as well. and her office is located in the Marine Safety Operations Center at the Port of Baton Rouge, where those records were maintained. Also, oversight over the other grants, which is Rockwood Steel. That's all of the other grants that we do. But one of the other things that we are planning to do is hire an accountant, which will require us to reallocate a position, a clerk position, so that that position will be the person to provide that internal grant management function, that we will have a dedicated person that everything grants in the accounting office will have to go through that person, and that person will be interfacing with those grant administrators. So we plan to deploy a centralized grant management system to monitor the deadlines, reporting, and allowable costs. This will include the port maintaining its own files for all grants on the port's property. And I'm open to any questions.
All right, any comments from the audience? Ms. McCarty?
Aren't we paying a grant manager right now?
It depends on how the grant is set up, but yes, so Ms. Carol Fitch is a grant administrator for everything port security grant, and then Rockwood Steel, which is Ms. Heather Agner, handles the other grants. So though the grant manager did have the files in her Baton Rouge office for this particular one, which is the port security grant, the audit finding was the auditor felt that we should have those in our office. Now, when we look at the regulations, it just says you have to have control. So you could have them in the MSOC at the Port of Baton Rouge, but we agree that it is a best practice where we need to make sure, for transparency purposes and for control purposes, that those official files are maintained in our facility.
So what did we charge the grant managers with doing? Just writing grants or managing the grant?
This actual grant manager was charged with not only writing the grant, but she was involved in helping us, assisting us in managing the grant. And so those records, she was maintaining those records in her file.
So the finding is we failed to file documents, and we can have clawbacks, correct? So what happened? What went wrong that from our office, we did not get that office who we charged to do a certain job to manage the grant or come back to you and tell you this needed to be done?
I think that what we determined in the end, and I'm going to let Ms. Glapion, take this, but in the end, what we determined was we did have the files. They were in the Port of Baton Rouge in the MSOC, and we were able to produce that, but it just wasn't in our office. But let me see if Ms. Glapion can respond to your question.
Well, I'm not finished yet. Because what I'm trying to get to is, if you charge somebody with managing the grant, whether they are in Baton Rouge or they are here, somebody has to take responsibility for reporting. Was the grant manager supposed to take responsibility for reporting? Did you charge that person with that job? Because otherwise, even if we put it in our documents here, in Belchase or in the cloud that we control, we have to make sure the job is done. Okay.
The reports were prepared in our office and sent over to the grant administrator. She was actually the one that has the FEMA access to actually go in and drill down, actually prepare and file the FEMA reports that are required, the SF-425s that are required for that grant, and to also pull down the money. We do not, in our office, have the access to pull down those funds. That is the administration that she does on those grants for us.
Did she fail us in not filing? Is that why we have a finding?
She did not fail us in why we have the finding, and I'm not sure if what you're referring to is in the later findings as we get into the question costs, or is this just about the grant administration here?
Well, the point that I'm making is, even if we bring the grants under our charge, we are supposed to know that they are supposed to be filed appropriately.
All right.
Thank you.
So Mr. Champagne, you mind if I interject first, or you want it? So, this is why I asked for the whole thing. The condition was that the district excessively delayed submitting reimbursement requests for expenditures under the grant program. Grant administration responsibilities have been contracted out, but the district did not exercise oversight of the grant administration. In addition, the district records did not contain copies of reimbursement forms or supporting documents submitted by the grant. Basically, my understanding in our exit interview is we contracted out, we sent the information to Baton Rouge, they made some changes, sent it back, but we did not record and maintain copies here in the office, thus causing delays, causing incomplete forms. That is the overall picture. That's why I asked for the whole finding. All right, before I get into my comments, Mr. Champagne, you have the floor.
Actually, I had a question. I'm not on.
Yeah, you're.
I had a question regarding this, because it deals with the lack of internal documentation. But nowadays, most companies are shifting towards cloud-based storage, which should not be on site. And I would ask you, is that normal practice? I'm reading it because I'm reading the audit report. It doesn't say we didn't do anything. It just says we didn't have internal documentation on site. So, and I'm reading it right here. And I think one of the things we need to talk about too is, what is the effect? Because we paint a doom and gloom picture, and some of these things talk about, just not having internal documentation and what it can do. So I would also recommend that maybe you talk about what the auditor said is the effect, so that the folks in the audience and following along would have a clear understanding of, we're talking about what the issue is, what the potential effect is, and I think that'll paint a better picture. But again, I refer back to my question about cloud storage, because it appears, I think we're kind of going off saying that they did not have accurate records. And I think what they're saying they did, but they potentially didn't have hard copies there. There's some implication that stuff wasn't filed, and nowhere in this audit does it say that. So I would like you to touch on that, please.
So it does not need to be maintained on site per se, but my understanding from talking to the auditor in our exit interview was there was differences in the documentation that we had versus the grant administrator had, which differed from the reimbursement requests. Thus, which records were correct. It doesn't matter where it is, whether it's in the cloud or not, but our staff, when requested by an auditor, has to be able to quickly be able to get that information. I say quickly, it could be 2 days or something to pull it, but my understanding that this is part of the reason why we have a late finding was because we couldn't get the information from Baton Rouge, from the grant administrator. There was a delays in what the request was. Thus, that means we have incomplete records that our staff can access on a regular basis. Because if we can't access it and that grant administration disappears for some reason, then what happens to all our records? You know what I'm saying? So we don't have access to where the grant administrator was storing the information, correct, Ms. Glapion? Thus, when the auditor asked for support, the support didn't match. Eventually, but it has to do with reimbursement requests. What happens is we send our information to the grant administrator. They fill out stuff, they look at it, they make sure we're in compliance, send it back. We're ultimately responsible for approval, but then we didn't maintain any of those records or the changes. You want to add?
And also for 24, during 2024, there was only one reimbursement done during the year, during 2024, and then one again here in 2025 for that 24 activity. That is something that we need to be doing that on a quarterly basis. And in finding out when we did those reimbursements, as I had been here this year in March, when we turned those in March. March is that quarter end. I was expecting them all to be on those 425s that she filed for the first quarter. Some of them were not because of the timing when she received those reports. And that wasn't until the end of it, and I'm trying to reconcile this out for Jamie, that I realized, okay, we sent this in, but it did not get in. We sent it in, I'm thinking it was reported to the federal government and therefore is required in our audit report. However, it had not been reported to the government at that same time.
You said before.
Does that kind of do you follow along?
No, it
with
does.
that?
I just wanted to be clear about the cloud and talking about some of that. And again, I'm looking at this and it talks about potential loss of future federal funding, but, something we got our duck, we got it, just a process problem that we identified. And I just wanted, Mr. Chairman, again, if you could talk about some of the stuff specifically in the audit so we don't make assumptions, other people don't
Yeah.
make assumptions. Thank you.
So my comments, again, this is another repeat finding. We had the same issue last year. Again, in our policy, page 55, administrative documentation and file management, it says that we must furnish essential facts, including a description used as a basis for informed decision at each step in the process, furnish a complete audit trail that may be used to support reviews and future investigation, litigation, or inquiries. Again, it's in our policy already. We have a repeat finding. We're not following our own policy that was in effect in March of 24. And I'm not even blaming you, Ms. Clapton. You weren't here until January 25, so you had really nothing to do with this. So we just not following our policies. And again, I believe we're going to change our policy, it said, or update our policy for it. It's already in there. So any other comments from the commission before we go? Ms. McCarty. Wait, hold on. All right, Ms. McCarty.
The point I was trying to get to is that this is a repeat finding. So anything that we're doing today should have been done last year, so it wouldn't occur this time. There are a lot of things in management policies to evaluate things, reports that we can do internally that would identify these. That's all, right now.
All right, Mr. Kognovich.
Whose spot did you take?
Is that to myself?
For Ms.
Oh.
Clapton?
The former director of finance was Shambrell Riley. She, I believe she left in '22. They had an interim director in before I started.
Wasn't, what's her name? Wasn't she running that grant? No, the one that just left.
Ms. Brown, she was working on the grant, yes. She was the accountant that was working on and preparing some of those reports, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think your point is very well taken. I mean, we know that the previous director of finance was really kind of the catalyst behind doing the policies, and when she left abruptly, we did have Mr. Tommy Surpass for a while, and now we have Ms. Glapion. And I will say the transition that we have experienced has created some challenges organizationally for us.
Any other comments by the commissioners? Finding number 3.
Okay, procurement practices, quote, solicitation, process, and documentation. So these violations occur because the district did not administer its own procurement controls and procedures. Staff relied on prior relationships and vendors and vendor invoices instead of following required competitive procedures. There was no system in place to verify if the procurement documentation was obtained and retained before approving the payments. The district did not enforce its own procurement requirements for professional services. The oversight was limited. The staff relied on vendor invoicing without ensuring that procurement documentation was properly obtained or retained. So, again, I think that it is true. I mean, the port did not provide the information to the auditor when it was asked, nor was there a clear understanding of our IT vendors' purchasing efforts. So I think what this comes back to is our IT vendor purchased a lot of stuff for us in 2024 and in 2025 because we do not have a IT department or a director of IT. So if we're purchasing laptops, if we're purchasing specialized equipment for the mobile command unit, We don't have any expertise on the staff to do that now. Now that vendor was required to go out and get quotes. And I know we had conversations from the vendor, and the vendor did. Unfortunately, we were not able to produce those quotes to the auditor. So again, we've adopted our new policy, and I clearly understand that we've had a policy in place that we didn't really follow, and I think this comes back to the system, where we really have to have a better system, where it doesn't matter if it's a IT issue between our administrative department, our finance department, or a local vendor who's purchasing something on our behalf, if it's a laptop or whatever that may be, if it's purchasing fiber optics, for the port, that's not in the regular contract, right, for the monthly services, but it is something that we need in addition to what is in that contract. So for us, the real solution here is, standardizing the procurement documentation templates, and we are going to ensure that we have digital storage of all quotes. And I can give you an example. We have two situations right now where the Marine Department has gone out for quotes, one for a digital sign. They only got 2 quotes, and one for emergency repairs on the Port Authority 1. They only received 2 quotes. And so in the past, that would just kind of fall into an abyss that we only received 2, but now it is clearly documented and in SharePoint that we tried to get 3, we only received 2, and it's in a file, and everybody from finance to admin to Marine will have access to those quotes, and we will maintain that in the files so that when the auditor comes, all of those, that file, that particular file for those consolidated quotes, whether it was 3, whether it was 2, or whether it was 1, all is in that one repository. Did I miss anything with that, Ms. Glapion?
The only thing you missed is that with the new Microsoft Dynamics, they will be tagged to the actual transactions within the system.
Done. Any comments from the audience? From the commission? All right. Okay, Mr. Newsom?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, and I'll hit on Mr. Champagne's thing. It says failure to retain quotes. Do we know how many quotes we're talking about?
It's unclear to me on exactly how many. I do know that I've had discussions with our vendor, and we have specifically talked about getting quotes. So, I can go and get the answer to that.
Because I looked under the criteria condition, and it doesn't give a number of quotes. That's all. I thought maybe maybe your conversation, you might have had an idea. But that's fine. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments from the commissioners? All right. So it says it's procurement policies by entering into multiple professional services contracts without retaining any evidence. So to me, that sounds like it's more than just this IT thing. And again, our exit conference with the auditor confirmed that. Again, this is another repeat finding, but page 19 and page 23, the port adheres to the following principles: acquisition of materials and services at competitive prices in compliance with local, state, and federal laws, equal opportunity for all qualified bidders to participate in procurement processes. We're not doing what we say we're doing that our principles are. That's like the first part of the procurement thing is we follow these principles. Are you saying that the vendor has to go get the quotes for us? I have never heard when you contract a vendor is for a service, not for them to go purchase something and them get the quotes because they're a private company.
Right.
Why are we doing it that way instead of us getting the quotes for the, from my understanding, it's computers and cameras, and then them contracting professional services for them to install it or do whatever they have to. But to say that the vendor is responsible, I have never seen that I can think of off the top of my head where the vendor was responsible for, a private company responsible for public bid law.
So we are ensuring that they are following public bid law. And we do specifically for our IT vendor, because we don't have the expertise. I mean, I am probably the most savvy IT person on the staff right now, and I'm a baby boomer, right? And I don't have time nor the expertise to go get those quotes. So we have this IT vendor in place, and we have the demand for new technology. So we've had to leverage that vendor relationship to follow public bid law. So that vendor is following public bid law. So if we want to purchase laptops, for example, the vendor will go and get us the 3 quotes, and then we will look at the 3 quotes, and then we will take the lowest bid for those quotes.
But they're not following public bid law because that's why we have a finding.
Well, I do agree that it appears that we may have some of those quotes that we don't have the copies for, and I am surprised about that. So I acknowledge this was a shortcoming, and it is something that we are making sure that we take tighter controls over.
So back to the district violated procurement policies by entering multiple professional services contracts. Page 40 of the procurement policy is professional and consulting services. Multiple places throughout here, it says the board requires approval, board for approval of selected vendor. We never approved a lot of these vendors, like some of them that's unquestioned. And then it even says when value is more than 50,000 and competitive process is not used, which again is professional services, so you don't necessarily have to go out for RFP, it's standard practice. But at the end it says the board shall consider and approve the contract prior to execution. So are we not, because like example is the Navy business case analysis. We're using Bridges Group.
Right.
We never approved that contract for the Navy business case. We approved it for the master plan, but not the
Navy business case analysis in the 2025 budget. So it was approved.
It has been approved, the budget amount, but it says we have to approve the vendor.
Did we get bids?
The vendor as in the Bridges Group?
Yes.
So are we saying we never approved the Bridges Group as a vendor?
Correct. And there's multiple that when I start researching that we never approved the vendor per our procurement policy. We appropriate the money, but never actually labeled who the vendor is. Because it clearly says the board shall approve the contract, the board for approval of the selected vendor. It clearly says that we're supposed to be involved in that process. I'm not saying that it's not in the budget, but I'm saying that there's a whole section on professional and consulting services. And to me, if we see the vendor's contract and all that, instead of just appropriating money like we're supposed to, some of this could have been solved because I would question the vendor requiring any quotes, first of all, if I would have saw that contract. But, because like I said, I never heard that before. But I'm just saying, how many other ones that we don't know about that we never approved?
So let me just make sure that I understand the question that you're asking. Are you asking if the Bridges Group is an approved vendor for the Louisiana Gateway Port?
No, for that project. It's based on the project. Because
Right.
we did approve them for, like example, we signed a contract for the Bridges Group for the master plan, for our rebrand with the company, the Palmer Group. It clearly said Palmer Group. That's approving. But there's other ones that when researching these findings, that we appropriate the money, but we never approved the contracts. So we're not, again, it's going back to making sure the policies that we have in our policy book that we're following. Does that make sense?
So I just want to make sure that with the Navy business case analysis, we have had weekly updates that it was from, I mean, the work was performed by the Bridges Group when we determined that because they did the master plan, because they did the market analysis, this same analysis would make sense to come from the same source. So we
And that's fine, because it clearly says when the value is more than 50,000 and competitive process is not used. That makes sense. Okay, they did everything, so it makes sense to go with them. But it still says the board shall consider and approve the contract and vendor prior to execution. So we still have to approve it, not just give you the money and say, go pick whoever you want. We still have to approve it. And again, that's just one I found. There was another one that I found, but that one wasn't. I'm just saying, we approved the appropriation, the 258,000, I think it is, and it makes sense why we went with the Bridges Group. I'm not questioning that decision, but we need to fix that now, because we could have a finding already for next year. So we need to do, hey, we're going to sign a contract officially. We give the board, this board gives approval for the Bridges Group, because it's in our policy.
So there is a signed contract for the Bridges Group.
But we never approved it. The board never approved it per our policy. That's what I'm getting at. We have policies. That's what an auditor does. Audit goes in, looks at, okay, here's the information. Does it follow our policy? Yes or no? Does it follow the law? Yes or no? Does it do this?
I guess I'm just a little confused because, I mean, I think we've been talking about the Navy business case analysis for well over a year. I mean, Mr. Chairman, you were in the meetings. I mean, we've had multiple updates, and now I'm hearing somehow that.
We just approved the appropriation for the Navy business case analysis a month and a half ago, I think. So.
A month and a half ago.
Yeah, 258,000. We just approved it. I have the ordinance if you want it.
So are you referring to are you referring to phase 2?
No, because that one's we're not voting on yet. We just voted on something about midsummer.
No, the Navy business case analysis, we've been working on it well over a year. So I think that must be something else that you're referring to.
Okay. All right. I'm just saying, for professional services and stuff, we need to follow our policies. And then page 37, 38, there's a whole list of port executive director's responsibilities that basically goes against this whole finding. If anybody wants to look at page 37, 38 of the policy book. And again, it's a repeat finding. Ms. McCarty.
Do I hear Mr. Tillotson, you saying that because we've been talking about the Navy business case analysis for a year, that perhaps Mr. Schultz or Mr. Newsom, which are in the meetings every Monday, should have told you what the policy is, what was supposed to happen, instead of you telling us that the Bridges Group was going to have that contract?
No, I'm surprised about this conversation. That's the only thing that I'm saying. I got some notes here to definitely go and make sure that I go back and double check everything myself. I mean, this is something that, we started this over a year ago. I don't remember the exact details, so I'll go back and I will fill in those blanks.
But what are you implying by the fact that we started this over a year ago? You're shocked that it's coming up now in the audit?
I think it's just the conversation right now. This is the first conversation that I've had where we're questioning whether the Bridges Group was authorized to do the Navy business case analysis. I'm surprised because we're over a year in.
Okay. Well, I've been schooled by you that I cannot step on the operations side. So they were not obligated to tell you that this was inappropriate, according to past conversations. Is that correct?
I'm not sure that I understand the question.
You've told me that I step on the operations side when I try to show you what can be done with management. So we're the governing side, and you're the management side. And if you're expecting them to mention to you that the Bridges Group was not approved, then that's not their job, according to previous conversations. Is that correct?
Wait, sorry, I was asking a question. What's the question?
Okay. If we are the governing side, and that's the management side, then administration. So we as the governing side would not be required, you with your knowledge would not be required to point out to Mr. Tillotson that we did not approve.
I wouldn't say that because then that's a gotcha, like we're trying to settle. I mean, no,
Well-
our job is to govern, and if we know something's wrong,
Okay, so when I have pointed out things that were wrong in the past, I was told I was stepping over the line. So that's where I don't know where this line is. If we're supposed to help out, or we're not supposed to help out. I yield.
all right, Mr. Champagne.
A quick question for you and a comment. One of the things earlier, in one of the earlier findings, they talk about 3 written quotes or telephone quotes. How do you track telephone quotes? And then the auditor writes this. So I'm curious about that
What
procedure.
finding is it?
On the first one, the very first one, I meant to ask you that earlier. I don't want to backtrack, but since we're talking about finding quotes, it's one thing to get a documented written quote from someone or an email quote, but how do you track telephone quotes? Never heard of
I
that
think that,
before. No, it's clearly written
Where-
as
where at?
criteria. Finding 2401, page 61.
yeah, we're at
First paragraph, under criteria.
paragraph, okay.
How do you track telephone quotes? That seems pretty vague to me. So, but it's clearly written, so I think we need to do a better job of that too. We need to make sure that's covered in our policies, that's not
No,
acceptable.
what they're saying is telephone quotes, like you receive a quote from, on the phone and you have to it says you just have to document.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it
It's not
does. It
documented.
says all service contract, oh wait, no, wait.
No, it doesn't. What I'm saying is we need to do away with that. We need to make sure that's clear in our
Supported by-
policies.
Yeah.
Mr.
okay.
Chair, what I'm saying is we need to, I recommend in our policies, we only accept written quotes. If there's such a thing as a telephone quote, we need to make sure we don't have that. And number 2, speaking of policies, one of the things that I personally read all those policies. You know, I sat through and went through them and stuck Post-it notes everywhere, and I think a couple other commissioners did. So I think we're remiss as well in not catching some of these things, particularly the thing with the Bridges Group. Probably should have caught it, and I think the chairman makes a good point, but I think we all should have caught that. We read this. A number of us have read this stuff, and we should have caught that ourselves. And to Ms. McCarty's point, I don't think it's stepping over the line if we have something that could potentially get us all in a bind. I understand where she's coming from, but I think we all missed this one. Because we have talked about the Bridges Group and them being involved, and I think we all got a little slack on this one. I yield.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you make a very good point, and it is something I have a note here. I will go back and check on that this evening.
All right. Any other comments on finding number 3? Number 4.
So this is a noncompliance with contract payment and reimbursement terms. So the exceptions occur because inadequate review of supporting documentation, weak enforcement of contract terms, and a lack of clarity in oversight of payment approvals. Essentially, I mean, this was there was a, what's that? Oh, sorry, guys. All right, here, you can drive. I can't do 2 things at once, I guess. The first item was, there was three Irish coffees on a receipt that should have been caught. I'm not really sure how I missed that when I signed that, but it was reimbursed. I think they reimbursed the entire amount of that meal, which was $56.51, which was not just the 3 Irish coffees. And then I think there was also a finding that for the master plan, the port, in the contract, and the port paid 40% in advance of a document where we do actually have the completed master plan. It is comprehensive. It was delivered on time. I spoke with the auditor about it, and she felt that, well, maybe that's not a best practice, because how do you know that that contractor or that vendor was going to deliver? So we are, clearly aware of that finding, and it is something that we will make sure that in moving forward, that if there is a requirement such as this where there's an advance payment, that we closely scrutinize that, and if we are going to do that, we'll make sure that conversation is very clear with the commission and that it's also consistent with our policies. Ms. Glapion, did I miss anything on this one?
No. I think you've covered everything.
All right, any comments from the audience? From the commissioners? Cue in, please. Mr. Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on this one, when it says about paying the 40% before services are rendered, what, and I'm going to yield to maybe some of my colleagues, what is the standard? I guess I'm sure, what is the standard?
It's not uncommon for this type of professional service agreement where you pay a percentage in advance, because a lot of times that service, they may be purchasing data, they may be bringing in outside experts, and they have to pay those outside experts. So it's not uncommon. I have heard of it before. I acknowledge, Ms. Rogers' finding here, and it is something that we will closely scrutinize in going forward. But I have heard of it before. It's not unheard of.
Because in here, they're getting into a lot of stuff they talk about, and it's, but Louisiana, and I'd have to yield to my colleague on the right here, with some of these, I see best practices and stuff like that. That's all.
And
I don't know
Commissioner
what's the-
Newsom, if it was a vendor that we had not done business with and they performed for us, perhaps we would have looked at it a little differently. But we know that they were deploying other resources. They were purchasing data. But we will look at this in the future, and we will make sure that we try to follow that best practice.
I'm sure we got a policy on this somewhere in our book. I don't know what it, and I'll yield to the chairman and let him.
Well, I
probably-
want to add to what Mr. Tilson just said. This was for the master plan. You said if it was a vendor that we never used before. Well, we never used the Bridges Group before that point.
Well, we actually used the Bridges Group for the market analysis in
That was in
2023.
conjunction with
No.
Look at the timing.
That's correct, but the market analysis was done in 2023, and then the master plan was done in
It was
2020.
completed in 2024, but we authorized it in 2023.
Right.
So, in this 40% upfront was in 2023, I'm assuming, when we passed it. All right, I'll come back to my comments in a bit, but that just, Mr. Jursich.
Yes, I'm looking right here, the response. Management disagrees with this finding and will amend its policy to allow reasonable alcoholic beverages with the meal such as occurred in this event. Once again, change policies to fit what you want to do, right here. The district is a political subdivision of the state and operates as a business. Therefore, business meals will be required. The district will ensure that its new policy defines a maximum acceptable amount of alcohol per participant during such a meal. Well, the Port of New Orleans is also operated as a business, a port, and they're trying to get a container terminal. How are they the same as us, but they have no findings in their report? And they're operating as a business. So this is a weak excuse, operating as a business, because New Orleans doesn't, and they have no findings in their report. Just explain that. I mean, you think you're going to change, once again, change policy to fit your needs. That's not, I can't see how we can allow that. I'm done.
Ms. McCarty.
So I thought the practice of paying someone up front for government services was against our Constitution. But I'm looking at the laws that Ms. Rogers wrote. She lists the laws that we've potentially violated here. Let's see. Louisiana Public Contract, Title 38 of Revised Statutes, while it doesn't say that you can't make an upfront payment, the revised 382191, for anyone listening, requires timely payments for obligations that are due on and payable upon completion. So a company like Ms. Rogers, I'm sure, or an IT company that would come in, they have to go out, because they're a public business, get a loan to operate their company. We don't seed them as, our taxpayers don't seed a public company. And that's basically what we were doing when we give a 40% payment in advance. They have to operate as a private business, go out and get their seed money to be able to do business with the government. Thank you.
Mr. Champagne.
Again, to add to what Ms. McCarty said, it says clearly, Title 38 revised statute says, does not explicitly ban upfront payments for professional service contracts. It says it right here. So, and then it comes back and says, well, maybe sometimes it does, maybe sometimes it doesn't. So when we have that, the law itself is unclear. The director said he received data. We were working with the Bridges Group. I don't see where it said, it did not come out and say this was against the law. And I'm a black and white guy. It either says it is or it doesn't. Just like the 3 Irish coffees. It generally fails the state public. Generally? What does that mean? Generally? It either does or doesn't. So what's next? We can't have turtle soup because there's sherry in it. There's no alcohol in that. It's ridiculous. 3 Irish coffees? He wasn't doing shots. He wasn't, it was 3 Irish coffees. So I think we're splitting hairs here. Now, I think with this is an opportunity to refine our policies. And to Mr. Jurisich's point, I get it. Shouldn't be saying we have to change policies a lot, but this is an opportunity to refine those policies that we do have and where they are vague. So I agree with your point, Commissioner Jurisich, but I also think that we need to see this as an opportunity to just tighten things up. So in this finding, I can see where there's this extremely gray area, and I'm sure the chairman's going to add to this because this is what he does for a living, and I look forward to hearing it. But when you go back to what the effect is, which is important, it really doesn't say it's going to do anything. You have potential risk of financial loss, potential noncompliance, potential. I yield.
Mr. Jurisich.
Yes, one thing about these Irish coffees, they were consumed before doing business. And what's the alcohol content in Bailey's, whatever it is? It's pretty, huh?
Bailey's Irish Cream.
Yeah. It's pretty well up there. And to have this before you even go into your meetings is, to me, after, maybe different, but before. And to get about the 40%, I do business, and I've learned. I've been burned before. I paid up to 50% of a contract only for that contract to run or to go out of business. So if they're not requiring you to pay the minimum of everything and let them work and earn their money as they go. They're going to have some expenses out there. If a company we're going to work with can't handle their own expenses, we don't need to be doing business with them because that's a scary situation. I yield.
Ms. McCarty.
Overall, I know that we are supposed to follow what is called best practices because we are taught what those practices are. So in this case, it says further down in the finding, best practices for contract management. It's at the bottom of the paragraph, bottom of the page. Payment should be based upon and toward defined milestones or actual deliverables. Paying in advance without deliverables or safeguards, and I'll ask you, did we have any of these? Performance bonds, escrow, or retainer agreement creates an internal control deficiency and exposes the entity to risk or loss. Did we have any of those in the contract?
Did we have any of what?
Did we have a performance bond from them? Did we have escrow or retainer agreement, is what she's saying.
So we did have a contract, and we also had a very detailed proposal on what was going to be provided, including any data sources and any other outside resources. That was part of the proposal.
Is there anything to back it up? Because we had a contract with Chris Fetters, too.
Well, I'm not sure how you compare the Bridges Group to LA 23, but what I will say is we contracted to produce the market analysis, and we have it here. It's a comprehensive market analysis, and it was really the first one of the 5 Deepwater Mississippi River ports. We have the master plan. The master plan is complete. It was delivered. Both of those documents were delivered on time. This phase 1 of the Navy business case analysis was actually produced ahead of schedule.
So the point that I'm trying to get to is that if we were a private company, we can take the risk or make the decision. And best practices would be to follow a certain pattern, no matter who the contractor is. But right now, we're using taxpayers' dollars. Well, you say it's not taxpayers' dollars, but once it hits our bank account, it is. You want to disagree?
Well, I think the distinction is that we do operate on public funds, right? And those public funds are generated by our tariffs, our leases, and our grants. That is where the revenue comes from. So I think that may be what Ms. Glapion was referring to. But we take the handling of public funds very seriously. And so we clearly understand that a best practice would be, if in the future, that we refrain from having any advance payments for a contract such as this one. So we hear it, we heard it from the auditor, and we're not contesting that. And then I think to respond to Commissioner Jursich, I do agree with you, and we did write that in the policy about changing the policy to allow for, business alcohol drinks, and we have since reviewed that. I have reviewed that personally, and we will explicitly not allow for alcohol at all under any circumstances. We will no longer have port nights. We will not participate in any alcoholic beverages on our business ventures. It will not be on our expense report.
All right. So a lot of the comments I have is already in here because, again, it's in our policies and stuff. One of the things I was going to point out was, first of all, saying you're going to amend the policy. We have to amend the policy, this commission, not you. The other thing is, at first review, staff was unaware of the alcohol purchase. Again, it's in the policy, but you submit the reimbursement, correct? Or who submitted the reimbursement?
This reimbursement in question was from the vendor. So it was received by staff. They reviewed the expenses received from the vendor for reimbursement to that vendor.
And outside of this, because it was not a finding, or it's not clear in finding, but that contract said travel and expenses were supposed to be pre-approved. And, oh, wait, no, it's actually travel reimbursements were processed without documented pre-approval. We need to get off the case of traveling and doing reimbursements and get back to the tier system, Louisiana state law for most governments, where you basically get per diem up front. That way we don't have this problem. You get X amount for travel per meal, spend it how you want. And then that way we don't have this problem. That would solve all of this.
We concur, and that is exactly what we will do.
Paying 40%, again, we talked about best practice. And basically, one of the things, what questioned somebody, I think Mr. Champagne, about audits, like professional services, we don't get paid until the end normally. Sometimes we do mid-audit billing, but not often. So we don't get 40% up front. The other thing is, we're talking about deliverables. This was a reliable group, but it goes back to the first finding. The IT, part of that IT contract or finding was because the original IT vendor went out of business. So if we paid that company 40% back then and they went out of business, we're out how much money? So that's why you don't do 40% up front, because you never know if they're going to go out of business. I mean, that's why it's best practices, basically, where you don't get, like Mr. Jurcich said in his private business, you don't get left on the hook for whatever, because basically that's how that whole finding on number one happened. Was they went out of business, we transferred the bid over to our new IT provider, show went out for bid, all that stuff. But if we paid 40%, I think the equipment was 250 range thousand. 40% of that is what, $100,000 we would have been out back then. I know that was 2023 right when you started. So I'm just using that as an example. So again, we have to, it's in our policies. Page 76 talks about the contract and where the deliverables and monitoring plan. Alcohol, we talked about again. That's clearly in our policy. Next item, or next finding, please.
You got the clicker. Okay, item 6, failure to report, wait a minute, we're on 5, I'm sorry. Unallowable travel and meal reimbursement. These violations occurred because management failed to enforce travel policy requirements and did not review reimbursement requests for compliance before approval. Staff relied on formal practices rather than applying the written policy standards. So this was a meal during the 100-year snowstorm this past winter, where a commissioner was stuck in New Orleans at the airport and the roads were closed and the commissioner couldn't go home. So essentially the issue here was the commissioner purchased breakfast, his wife purchased a breakfast, and it ended up on a receipt. And somehow, when it came in, it was the timing on closing out the month was fast, and we missed it. The commissioner did reimburse this amount, for the full amount of the meal, his and her. So it wasn't just his wife's portion. He just reimbursed the whole thing because there was no intention here to do anything inappropriate, and frankly, I missed it on the receipt myself.
Any comments from the audience? From Mr. Jurcich.
Yes, what bothers me about this finding, had it not been brought up by someone, would it have been found? That's the question I have. Because I think there was questions asked about it from outside. And, would it have been corrected if not? That was, that's all.
So I am concerned about the meal, but not so much. But my understanding was, did we pay for the hotel room the first night prior to the flight?
That is correct, because the commissioner went to the hotel for an early morning flight, so there was anticipated that it could snow.
But
right.
My concern is we have a policy basically against same-day travel, but because it was an early flight, we paid for a hotel room locally for a commissioner, even if it wasn't a commissioner, for staff or whatever, to say we don't have to wake up early to get a flight. I mean, that's my concern, because that's normally against best practices too, because at what point, what is early? Is 7 o'clock in the morning early, 5 o'clock? You know what I'm saying? It depends on how far you're traveling. I mean, Mr. Kognovich, Mr. Hava, I mean, for him to get to the airport, he has to leave, for a flight at least 3 hours prior, while for me, it's only 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? So to say we're going to pay for a hotel room the night before a flight because it's early is normally not allowed. The meal, I mean, I've seen it, I get it. I'm not really that concerned about that part of the finding. But that's my only comment is we need to address that. That is not in our policy. Nothing about, it does say, talk about same-day travel with meal, in regards to meals, which is normally how you appropriate hotels with meals is if you're paying for meals, you can normally pay for hotels. So it's kind of referenced, but it's not clear, so we need to address that going forward. Mr. Jurisich.
Yes, just to make one thing clear, me and Mr. Newsom had rooms in Kenner at the same time. Once our flight started getting canceled and we tried to rebook, we left and went home because we had that window of opportunity. We didn't get trapped. We made a good decision. We made wise decisions to get home because I did not want to be stuck in a snowstorm in New Orleans. So everybody had plenty ample time. You knew your flights were getting canceled because they were falling off the radar. So, to just go ahead and stay behind and, that should have been done on their own expense.
As a foreign pilot, falling off the radar is not the best term to use. Ms. McCarty.
Just as a reinforcement, I did make it to DC, but I flew up early, and I paid for my flight to go up early. Thank you. And when we went to Quebec, I paid for my flight to go up early. So we can absorb that.
Are you saying you pay for your flight or you pay for your hotel?
Oh, hotel.
Okay. Because the port paid for the flight, and I think the issue here was health and safety. There was reports of there being some bad weather. I did, like yourself, Commissioner McCarty, and I did leave early, so I was able to forego that. But definitely, all of the comments are very well taken, and it is something we will make sure that we go back and readdress.
Or number 6, unless if anybody actually has comments on number 6, because it was a software switch and oversight, it happens. I don't think anybody's really concerned about that. It got corrected. Anybody wants to actually go over number 6? Because it happens. I've seen it happen during software switches. All right.
Okay, so moving to number 7. So I'd like to point out that defining to number 7 is actually the same issue as in finding 10. So we'll talk about these two together. But the district did not enforce Louisiana bid law or its own approval thresholds. Management failed to ensure compliance with legal requirements governing public purchases. So I think the first thing that I'd like to do is point out that what we're talking about is an expense that started prior to 2022, which was related to the port security grants for purchasing of cameras was one piece, and the other side was a GIS, our GIS platform. So essentially, myself and others joined the port in 2023, and when I look back in hindsight, I learned of the issue at hand in June of 2024, where you had two vendors that competed for RFPs, and I think one of them for the cameras was the only bidder. And then the GIS, I think maybe there was two bidders. One of them was ES Square, the other one was ITS. Well, ITS subsequently decided they didn't go out of business, but they decided to no longer do the IT support, right? So when I arrived here at the port, we didn't have eval IT, we had another IT vendor. Well, somehow that the bid that they won was actually applied to the same GIS contract, right? And so from my point of view, I mean, when I looked at it back then, and I even look at the documentation for it now, it was recommended by the previous executive team to integrate the GIS and the cameras together, because the GIS basically tracks, it covers all of our geographical boundaries in the Port District in a digital system. And with that, we actually were able to connect the cameras to that digital system. In hindsight, in retrospect, when I look back, we should have rebid the cameras once ITS decided they were no longer going to participate. I didn't catch that in 2023 that occurred, right? I mean, it was brought to my attention by Mr. Brown right before he left, and by the auditor that, you know, how these RFPs actually played out. So clearly was an oversight by myself and the staff. But what I will say is the previous port staff, the idea and concept of integrating both of these cameras and GIS together was forward thinking, and it was innovative, and it has put this port in a posture where for the first time in this past hurricane, we were actually able to watch our ferry assets. So just to put this in perspective, if you look at on the left side of the screen, we actually have a portal here now where we have a search and rescue portal that is in the port's MSOC, and it's also in the port executive conference room where we can actually get involved with fire and rescue from the MSOC or from the executive conference room by knowing what mile marker that event occurred at. And if it's a ship, the portal that you see below, where you can actually see that little yellow mark, which is a ship, and we're picking up the AIS, and it is something that we can see real time. You know, we can see that ship there. We know the ship's name. We know what it's carrying. We know the owner. If it's somebody in the water, we know exactly what it is. But if you look at the right, these are actually 9 of our 44 cameras that are installed up and down the Mississippi River. So if there's an event at a mile marker, we can actually access a camera and zoom in, pan around, and actually see that event, and we can guide our rescue boats to that event. So I acknowledge the fact that in retrospect, you know, we really should have gone and we should have rebid those cameras. But I would like to point out that the cameras were purchased at a lower cost than what was on the RFP. And all of those cameras are accounted for. They are tied into that GIS. And what I will say, this port district has the most robust GIS system that has integrated AIS, and it has integrated cameras, and the logical next step is to create a digital twin. So we are much better off than we were when this project started. But again, the way that RFP took place and the transfer from one vendor to the other, in retrospect, really should have been rebid. However, I would just like to point out one thing. Again, the cameras were actually purchased at a lower cost than what was bid a couple of years prior.
All right. Any comments from the audience? Ms. McCarty.
I have 2 separate types of comments. The first is, you know that I'm familiar with Esri. Okay, so Esri already has software that we can plug into that connects the AIS, the GIS, a still photo, which we were,
We're getting off subject.
wait, he said that we are the only port that has this.
I know, but that's not having anything to do with the findings.
Well, then maybe neither did what he said. But I'm just saying, it's not exactly correct, the statement. What we did was good, but the statement wasn't accurate. About the finding, is this the only time when we have not obtained 3 bids for a project?
Well, this is, so this came out in an RFP, I think, in '21, when it was awarded. So this is, this is something, the transaction actually took place in '23 and '24, and I think tailing off into '25. So it's a long-term project to pull all of this together.
But is this the only time we have not obtained 3 bids for a project?
So in this case, this was an RFP, so it wasn't a 3 bid. So we put it out for an the previous port team put it out for an RFP, and they were the only bidder. There was only one bidder. So this was not a quote. We didn't, because of the dollar amount, this was above the threshold of just getting 3 quotes. We actually had to put out a request for proposal.
Did this ever happen before? That's all I'm asking, yes or no? Maybe before you came along, Ms. Buffy.
I'm just going to give a broad observation, since this is similar to findings 1 and 2, and it was a repeat finding. I would say yes, because it's repeat finding, thus obviously it happened before.
Right.
That's all I can say. I don't know, I don't remember exact details from last year versus this year, but it's a repeat finding. So broadly, yes. Okay. My original comment was going to be based on your actual management comment of, though this was an oversight, the camera technology integrated in the GIS environment increases support safety and security posture. I get that, but but then you're trying to sell, oh, look at all this. Yeah, we kind of broke the law, but it's not that big of a deal. But that's the same response from last year's finding dealing with Rockwell, with the going over the budget authority, where you went, I think, $18,000 over the budget without approval, but we got $18 million in grants, so it's okay. This is not the type of attitude that we need to be having, because it clearly, there's even in our policy dealing with data processing, telecommunications, and all that, there's a whole section on that. So to then have this whole slide saying, hey, look at what we got. Yeah, we broke the law, procurement law. I mean, Louisiana bid law. Sorry, I'm bid law is not the right attitude. That's some of my concerns is reading the management responses. We're going to change policy. Well, policy already exists. We're going to change policy to allow alcohol. Well, no, we're not, or at least I'm not. I don't think anybody's really in agreement with that. Well, we got all this extra stuff, and we're in a great position. You know what I'm saying? It's the management response is, as long as the end meets the, I mean, what's the phrase? The end meets the means or whatever. That's not the right attitude to have here. That's just my opinion. I'm one of 9, but we got to quit with, I mean, this is a material non-compliance. The problem is we have multiple material weaknesses, multiple material non-compliance. A lot of these are repeats, which means for another 2 years where we don't qualify as a low-risk auditee, which means that's more work that the auditor has to do every year, which means risk of more finding, which, I mean, not because she's out to get you or anything like that. That's just, we have to look at it. Especially with the grants, that means 40% of the grants expended has to be tested according to audit standards, compared to if we're a low-risk auditee, it's only 20%. Big difference. So I don't think we're comprehending the seriousness of what this impacts, not only this year, not only what we do up here, grants, but going forward, future audits. So again, I just don't like that comment of, hey, we got the most robust system in the river. We didn't follow law, but we got it. So,
I concur with your position, and I really kind of tussle with whether I should, put the portal stuff up here. And the only reason that I did that, because I know I'm talking about GIS, I know I'm talking about AIS, I know I'm talking about the cameras and all of this integration piece, and I just thought that I would put it up there to at least put some perspective around it. Compliance is compliance. I agree. In retrospect, we should have handled that differently.
all right, next finding. Number 8.
So I think number 8 is pretty self-explanatory.
And,
Any?
and I'm just going to be quick on it. It all goes back to previous findings because we couldn't provide documentation. We have never, as far as I could tell, been a late audit submission on the parish side or the port side, ever.
This is actually the second time that I know of for the port.
When was the last time?
In 2022, I finished in 2023, I finished the 2021 audit over a year late.
Because there was, with the Chambrel being out and all that, there was the delay and all that.
Well, it was really over the CEA with the ferries, and Jamie and I went round and round about it.
We have to be better than this. I mean, because not only that, and I'm going to be clear, we got the extension. I made it very clear the first pre-board meeting in July, or I might even done in the meeting saying, yes, we have 90 days. I want it done by the end of July. And I was assured it would happen. Then July came and went. And then I said, it needs to get done. For it to be issued 2 weeks ago, I think, Friday 2 weeks ago, that's we're in November, October. I mean, that's even past the 90-day extension, right? July, August, September. Yeah, past the 90-day extension. So did we even get another extension? I don't know. Did we? For October? So we were past the extension. I mean, it all goes back to previous findings. I get it, but this is unacceptable. Go ahead, Ms. Glapion, on the extension. I don't know if we got it.
With the audit, we had our final audit conference scheduled for September 22nd. That was actually rescheduled as the auditor was sick to the 24th. And the 24th, I received 7 findings that were amended to 10 findings on October the 10th, which was after the 90 days expired, and then I received the 11 findings on October the 7th. That's when I received the final 11 findings and all of the detailed information about those findings so that I could properly reply to that with a management response.
Okay. All right. I mean, unless if anybody else wants to add on to the late audit submission. Any comments? Mr. Champagne.
2 things real quick on here. Again, this one references the telephone quotations again as being acceptable. Again, I just want to make sure we need to get that out of our policy because that's just going to cause us problems. It references Louisiana Revised Statute 38:2211. It just cites it again, and Mr. Chairman, just make sure, I think that's something we need to make sure we do away with because it'll come back to haunt us because you just can't track this.
No, I agree.
Thank you. I yield.
All right. Number 9, please.
So number 9, Ms. Glapion, this is the question on
Yes, this was with the question costs. When I looked at this, and this was items that were one of the port security grants that was done prior to Mr. Tillotson being here, was one for the MSOC that actually, when you read what was submitted originally for the investment justification as it aligned to the budget that was also submitted there, those 2 items did not align in either way. So then when we were actually applying those costs to that grant, I don't believe that the staff actually saw either that investment justification that was put together or that budget to be able to properly align those costs, which is what a part of the problem that I noticed in coming in as it was with some of the items that the auditor questioned with the port security grants.
So before we go any, are you saying that you agree with the auditor that was questioned? That it wasn't in accordance with the question or the?
I'm saying that some of them were not. That's correct.
Okay. Are you done with the management, or are you done with this one, Mr. Tilson, or did you want to add?
Anything else you want to add?
I just wanted to clarify that part. Are you done?
Yeah.
Any comments from the audience? Commission? All right, so now I'm even more confused because according to management response, it says management disagrees with the following, and management determined that it was in accordance, and basically out of all three, it was only one that wasn't. So, but now you're saying that
It really depends on how you read it, because if you read the investment justification that says one thing and the budget that says another, then it applies. But if you say that this one, A and B do not apply, are not the same thing, how can you say that your expenses apply there? Because if you read the investment justification in the words, it applies. But when you read the budget justification that goes along with that investment justification, it does not.
all right, so if we're getting into federal awards, and I just want to be clear, and I know multiple people heard me say it. I told people that we would have a single audit this year. I told people we cannot have findings on a single audit. Multiple people heard me say it. I have an email that I found from 2024 where I outright say, federal funds, we need to make sure we're really following policy and laws. We will have a single audit this year due to the amount of grants. I do not want findings related to federal awards. That will be a big deal. I want to be clear to the public. Federal awards, because that was my specialty when I was in audit, was single audits. You don't want single audit findings. To have, 3 total material, and 2 with question costs, that's a big deal. That hurts us looking when it comes to federal government. So to summarize this, reading the auditor's comments, 14 out of the 50 invoices were not in accordance with, really 15 because one was outside peer performance, were not in accordance with grants. That's $209,000 worth of question costs, almost 210. Again, I don't like the comment of management disagrees, and I get what you're saying now, but again, I'm a little bit different because I'm in that field, but that's what I specialize in. That's what Ms. Rogers specializes in, to say, you don't know what you're talking about, or not, I'm paraphrasing, don't get me wrong, is almost an insult to the audit profession to say that, we disagree because, and you really didn't really have any justification except for, so again, we have to realize that as an auditor, we audit what is given to us. We're not going to find stuff. We select a sample. Again, 50 invoices. I'm sure there was probably, based on 50, probably over 200 invoices, and probably about 80 invoices total. I forgot this is, but you know what I'm saying? It's not like we're going out to try and find this stuff. It's given to us. If it agrees, it agrees. Great. It's actually, as an auditor, I hate findings because that means we got to do extra work. That means we got to do extra documentation. That means we got to do extra procedures to follow you. And guess what? We normally don't get paid anymore because it's a set contract. So to have that attitude of, as an auditor, is not the best attitude. But again, there's certain policies that I can reference, basically where it says we have to do certain stuff. I know one of the things was the conference room outside your office was painted. That was question cost. Again, painting is not normally a requirement of a grant, so it's going to be questioned unless if it's related directly to some reason. But Ms. McCarty.
I don't want the audience to think that only because he's an auditor that he should know that there would be a single finding. It's common knowledge and what business studies are taught. And before, I think when I was in school, the limit was 350,000.
Single audit.
Single audit, that's what I'm talking about.
You said single finding.
Oh, sorry. And this year, I think it's somewhere up to 750,000. And it probably will, the trend will intend to
It's-
increase.
2024 was 750, in 2025, it went up to $1 million now.
Okay.
So,
So it continues to increase. But the fact is that it is common knowledge for executives to know that if you get a federal grant, you're going to get an audit. That's all.
all right. Number 10. Thank you. No, that was 9. Well, kind of, but. No, I want to comment on number 10. So go ahead. Pull your mic.
This is actually the same as number 7, but this is the question costs.
Yes.
So it's the same issue, but number 7 was not question costs, and this question cost was
463,000.
463,000.
Okay, I do want to add one thing. I'm not going to go off on, or any comments from my audience, commission, is the problem is mainly is the suspension and debarment. That is clearly in our policy, page 46. Only responsible contractors shall receive an award. The procurement file shall document the contractor's integrity, past performance, non-debarment, available at sam.gov, and financial stability, which are part of determination. Again, on page 47, the contractor must be in good stands with Secretary of State and vetted through both state and federal databases to ensure the contractor is not debarred or suspended. These databases are available at whatever. For us not to be checking one of the, I mean, that's a whole attribute related to single audit. I think it's attribute I. That's a whole section for us to not even, and it's in our policy to not even be checking it at all, ever. Because when I asked the auditor during the exit conference, I was like, are they even checking it now? And she said, as of July 2025, they didn't even know what it meant. Now, she then went to you, Ms. Glapion, and you did, but the people that's responsible for this procurement did not know what it meant, what suspension and debarment was. So, again, could that be a finding again in 2025 or for 2025's audit? Yes, because if we enter a contract prior to checking, that's going to be a finding. That's one of the most simplest checks for a client to do, but also as you probably know that in your field, Ms. Brian, that is one of the most simplest things known in the federal audit or federal grant world. And for us not to be doing it is just clearly unacceptable, in my opinion, as an auditor. I mean, so I know, from my understanding, she showed them exactly what to do and everything. So we're good going forward from July, but we could possibly have another finding again next year, repeat. So
As it relates to the port security grants, though those items were not checked, those vendors were not checked for the SAMS.gov disbarment and suspension, before Ms. Carroll would put those in on the FEMA side, she did checks on her side. Now, I know that still does not resolve us from having to do that, but none of those vendors were disbarred or suspended.
prior to the contract or work being performed, it has to be done, not after the fact, prior to reimbursement.
And even right now, to let you know, one of our new vendors being set up in the system did not have their SAMs, and actually, as our procurement officer was speaking with them about it, almost got scammed by somebody that was trying to charge them to get registered on SAMS.gov, which is a free service for all vendors. So that is being done, like I said, is being done on all vendors now.
All right, number 11. And then summary.
Okay, number 11, this is actually the untimely grant reimbursements. And I'll let Ms. Glapion just really talk to this.
So, and I kind of touched on this before, that they weren't only being done annually. So far this year, we've already done 2 requests, and we will be doing another one before the end of the year. My goal is to make them on a quarterly basis before the end of the quarter, so that I can make sure that it gets into that 425 at the end of the quarter, the SF 425s.
What?
Would you just say you're doing again?
Making sure.
Making sure that the reimbursements are requested timely on at least a quarterly basis, like I said, the month before the quarter end.
All right. Any comments from the audience? From the commission? Before I make my comment. Okay, so my issue here is, it's in our policy that the executive director is supposed to be reviewing the monthly financials, and to be giving us monthly financials without reimbursements in there, or in some cases months not being filed, is concerning. The other issue is, about a month ago, when we were talking about the water, whatever everybody's opinion is on whether we're in the business of water or not, but one of the reasons we discussed was we don't have the cash flow because we have to make these payments up front and everything. Well, if we're sitting on reimbursement requests without submitting them for months at a time, would we have the cash flow issues? So again, it goes back to, we have to be on top of this stuff, especially reimbursements, because some grants, I mean, I don't think so on the port side that I could find, but some grants, if you don't request it within normally 90 days, you don't get the money back. So that's more on school boards that I can think of off the top of my head. But again, it could happen to us, and especially with, right now, federal shutdown. How does that impact if we're 6 months behind on grant reimbursement, we're in shutdown? We might be waiting another 3 months for it because we're in shutdown. If we would have done this timely, how does that impact our cash flow? Because again, we're trying to buy property. We're trying to do certain projects that we need that cash. We had to take out a bond because of cash flow issues. Now, I know the bond had to do with multiple other projects that were higher than the cash we had on hand, period. But it all relates to the same thing. And Mr. Champagne.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, you would know this. What is the best practice on this, or do they determine when you get a grant, do they kind of tell you when to reimburse? They give you a schedule, or is there a best practice? Because they don't reference anything in the audit. And I think for the port to move forward, it'd be a good thing for us to put in a policy, a way to check. I'm just asking.
It really depends on the type of grant. In this case, quarterly is best because it's more long-term projects. Like on school boards, when you have Title I and certain stuff, it's monthly because you're spending that money every month. But on these type of grants, because you might spend some in February and then might not spend any more money into July, so you're not going to be doing monthly. Quarterly is normally accepted practice. Again, there's no set thing. A lot of times, some grants will say, "Hey, if you don't have done in 90 days," but that's nothing I could find in our grants specifies that. So it's not a set thing quarterly. If that's what we want to do, put it in our policy. We don't have when we do it in our policy, I'll admit to that, but we need to be more on top of it. And I understand you start in July and you already did one in, not July, January, but you did one in March. So your first quarter, you were here, you did it.
We did one in March this year, but we've also done another one in August too.
Yeah, so again, if that answers your question. All right, Ms. McCarty.
Mr. Schultz spoke about cash flow. And for maybe 3 months now, I've been talking about the unrestricted fund balance. And the reason I was told that it is in a negative, started at $6 million, now up to around $20 million, is because we received grants. But the real reason is because things aren't posted, because if we received grants, we would have a balanced account, and I was asking for a balance sheet, which I never did receive. Yeah. And I'm not blaming you, Ms. Clapion, because I realized that all this started before you came in, and that you have been distracted with other tasks and also missing an employee. But this is a pattern that has began before you came in. So I'm not blaming you at all. I'm just saying that the answer that I got had nothing to do with the real reason. So I kept waiting for Mr. Schultz to correct it, and he finally did at the last meeting. That's all I'm going to say about that part.
All right, that is all the findings. I'm going to allow summary if you have a summary. And then I have some comments. Ms. McCarty, I don't know, you said you had an overall comment. If anybody else, now's your chance. And then we'll wrap this up for tonight.
So, I mean, the 2024 audit actually highlighted some critical gaps in our process control and compliance as the port rapidly grows. And I mean, I think the complication is our fast expansion with limited resources have made it difficult to keep up with policy, technology, and regulatory demands. That is no excuse, and it is something that I am, taking very seriously. And we've already started having conversations in the port prior to today and including today. But the resolution in moving forward is to create a system. So we are planning our first ISO 9000 system training in December. So that's going to be December 8 to 12, and that is to be trained to become internal auditors under the ISO 9001 process. I think the second thing that we need to do to really help us in moving forward is to fill our 4 critical positions: 1, a chief operating officer; 2, a director of technology; 3, an accounting clerk, which will actually be a reallocation from a clerk position. That position will have the specific grant authority. And then the 4th position is a chief port engineer. You know, all of these positions we need to help us to build that process improvement integration. And we're just, for those 4 positions, we're waiting on civil service now. Ms. Bell is working very closely with civil service, and we're confident that we're close to actually being able to execute that. The next item is to execute some public-private consultation. We want to bring in some business and government stakeholders, so a ISO consultant to assist us with the ISO transition, and then also a finance and accounting consultant to put around Ms. Glapion so that we can help to really tie the future processes to the policies and adjust policies where they need to be adjusted. And the last thing is to become ISO certified within 12 months. That is going to be a huge undertaking for us. It is what it is going to mean. Once we finish this ISO internal auditor training, we're going to be engaged in actively going through all of our policies and procedures and creating checklists and verifying that we really are doing what's in the policy and that we're doing what we say we're going to do. So, this really concludes the audit review, and it is something that we are taking extremely seriously, and will be a very, very the highest priority for us in moving forward to tighten up our process control and build a system that can tie all of our compliance requirements together.
Thank you, Mr. Tilton. Any comments from the audience? Mr. Clark, state your name and address, please.
Hi, David Clark, 108 Avenue A in Bell Chase. Sitting here listening, I'm not privileged to the information you guys are looking at right now with the page and a half of findings. But, when you're talking about industry standards, you're talking about recommended practices, that's not breaking the law. That's what a lot of the ports may be doing. I'm just hoping that we're not out trying to, whip the dog all the time when we're audits, or sometimes audits are good for us. It makes us better. And we have to know that we can't just go out and want to fire somebody because they made a mistake. I mean, his turnover rate of employees, you guys know that the port has suffered with turnover rates. I've watched it during the meetings. I imagine his struggle to survive is pretty tough. The parish feels it too, right? We're having trouble finding grass cutters. We're having trouble with everything else. So just, like I said, the findings that we've seen, yeah, there's some pretty serious findings, but I think it's going to help us grow in the future. So, thanks.
Any other comments from the audience? Mr. Jurisich.
Yes, Mr. Clark, I appreciate your comments, especially about people turning a lot of employees over. I do want to make one thing clear. I've contacted those employees that have resigned. They never had an exit interview. None of them. None of them. And that was told to us. You put it in a letter. That's just a bold-faced lie right there. And I mean, that's the part that I have trouble with in trusting what goes on. We get accused of it. It's our fault. And I said before, talking with these ex-employees, they told me a lot more. They told me the real reasons. I'm not going to mention it here. They know.
Mr. Champagne.
First of all, Mr. Clark, thank you for your comments. I'd like to thank the people for coming here because it really sucks to come here, hear this stuff at 5 o'clock after a hard day at work. So thank y'all for being here. But you know what? I come from, most of y'all know I'm retired military. And I love audits. I love inspections. They're awesome. They make you better. And to say there was another port that had no findings, everybody's got findings. That means you didn't look hard enough. In my world, and Mr. Brock's shaking his head because he's grown up in that world, you want them to find things. That's the only way you get better. One of the things I looked at here, there's no money missing. Nobody was stealing. There's nothing, we did some processes wrong, and we're here to fix that. We've identified them. They're fixable. They're repairable. I read all the recommendations in here. They tell us how to fix it. So the audit is good. And Mr. Chairman, you come from this world. You do a comprehensive audit, you find things, and you give recommendations how to fix it. Otherwise, if you wouldn't have this, you would continue to make the same mistakes. So, Director, I think you have your marching orders here to fix things. There's a few holes we need to plug. And to speak to some of these folks who have left, one of the things that resonates with me is our auditor told us that we have a lot of great people that work for the port. And the port, it's demanding. It's a high operations tempo, and it's a business. And for some of those folks, they may be great people and working real hard, but it just takes time to learn these processes. And we have some high turnover because some people it just isn't for them. They go find another place to work, something that better suits them, because this is very demanding. Nothing bad against them. God bless them. I hope they do well. But I think that's some of the up-tempo problems or some of the reasons we had the high turnover. As for the exit interviews, I'll tell you, I spoke to 4 people who came up to me and they verbally told me why they left, and they were concurrent with what the director said. Rarely do you see people do a written exit interview when they're leaving someplace because it follows them. They didn't want to put it down in writing. I'm surprised if you'd ever get one. You may have gotten a couple. I don't know. I was not privy to that, but I know I have had people come to me when I was a port chair and tell me why they left, and that's confidential. I shared it with you, and I went nowhere else with it because it was confidential. But there were legitimate complaints, and so they did, but they didn't want to write it down. But again, this audit, I see this as a playbook for us to improve. I think we're doing great things. I think we've done more in the past 3 years than has been done for the past 30 years. We have a good staff. They're determined. Ms. Glapion, you knocked it out the park. Great job. So thank you. I yield.
Yeah, you want to comment, since this is normally out of the ordinary, but I'll let you make a comment.
Hi, my name is Erica Brown. I'm an ex-port employee. I'm with the parish now. A lot of these audit findings.
Please state your address for the record also.
3401 Lakewood Drive, Violet, Louisiana. Y'all know, in the beginning, I was just thrown in a loop when the previous administration left. So a lot of times I would reach out to Jamie to ask questions and what should I do and what, because I didn't know everything. This gentleman here walked up to my desk one evening and told me, don't you ever call the auditor on me. So a lot of the port employees wanted to be here tonight, but they're afraid of retaliation. So you all need to take that into consideration also. We are told not to talk to you all. We are told not to talk to the auditor. So what are we supposed to do as employees? And I don't know what 4 employees you talked to, but the ones I talked to definitely didn't name the council as the problem.
Thank you. Ms. McCarty.
I'd like to thank the comments from Ms. Brown and Mr. Clark. I'm going to address them a little bit.
All right, go ahead, come on.
Well, I don't want the distraction. So, Ms. Brown, the fact that you have been told, and I've heard other people are told not to talk to us.
Okay. We can't, thank you, Ms. Brown. I'm not trying to cut you off, and I'm aware, but we can't have a back and forth.
I didn't ask her a question. Okay, I'm making a statement. To me, it feels non-transparent and dysfunctional. It's things that we need to correct so that we can find out what the actual issues are and fix them. We should not be afraid of improvement. And Mr. Clark, the other people here have talked about their background, their experience. I'll say that Mr. Juricic is a successful business person. He manages a lot of money. Mr. Schultz is a successful auditor and accountant. I know that Dr. Gui has a business that he manages. And Mr. Champagne comes from a background in the military where there are a lot of accountability standards. And there, in the military, there are processes that are routinely brought through. And in general business, we are taught that there are general analysis, internal analysis, external analysis that are supposed to be conducted as a routine matter. So these things have not been done, and I have had a strong internal feeling of frustration for 2 years since I've been vice chair. Because a lot of the issues that we are experiencing could be resolved. So I am glad that we're moving forward with ISO 9001 instead of 9004 credibility, because it extends credibility to our port. It looks good to other people wanting to do business with us to say that we know what we are doing. It does not do so much for the internal side. What we were supposed to do when you first came in was to do a SWOT, a SOAR, and then to do a business reorganization process. And that would have included installing software that prevents us from having the repeated mistakes that we have. So it's frustrating that these things are not being done routinely. It's Mr. Tillotson, I have to share that you told me on 6 occasions that you have an MBA. So I expect you to perform to that level. In fact, if we were a public company, some of us could be in jail because it's Sarbanes-Oxley. The law says that you have to perform to the standard of your education. There's also a Louisiana law that will hold us accountable. Mr. Schultz and myself, he has a CPA, I have an MBA. If we were pulling teeth, I'm sure it would hold Dr. Gui accountable as well. So, but seriously, this impacts us as a board because it makes us look like fools because the port is not following standard business practices. And that's all I'm going to conclude with that. Thank you.
Mr. Kognovich.
Just because I don't have a couple letters behind my name doesn't mean anything. just because I went to BYU, backyard university. I got my degree. So just because you got a degree don't mean you're smart.
It means you're accountable.
No, it means you passed the test. That's it. You, Mr. Jurisdiction, I admit, he's a great businessman, millionaire. He's not the only one sitting on this table, that is. So, and I know there's another one. Just because I don't have businesses that you know of, doesn't mean I don't have money. I know how to use my money. And I didn't have nobody give it to me. It was all made off of that, my back. So to say, just because somebody don't have an education, they don't know nothing, I know that an audit isn't a I got you moment. It's a learning process where it teaches us what he did wrong, and I agree, they all ain't good. But it ain't a I got you moment, you're fired next week. Because I've sat through 7 of these audits. 3 of them has been by the book. And I talked to somebody who was owning the audit company that says, oh, they made a finding. And I told her, write everything you find. And I asked him why we didn't do that for Sandy. 4 audits before him wasn't done. Here you see the Gazette right, and it's bad now, or it's bad. But the Gazette was with it when that Sandy was here. Dale Benoit worked for the port, got a check. Ain't it a ethics violation? We can't hire his company? And I asked that question the first time. Said, oh yeah, it's okay, we done check. So, and I know it's an ethics violation, so what happened to that? It's when that group wants to do what they want to do, then things get done. They couldn't get the port away from us by a vote of the people because the people saw it. Now they're working another deal. So y'all could say what you want. The audit's done. We're going to do better, and that's it.
Ms. McCarty.
Okay. I'm going to try to respond with my notes. So, Mr. Kagnovich, I did not imply that someone, I did not even imply that someone is not smart because they don't have a degree. What I did say is that certain industries, certain certifications require you to be accountable because you can be accountable by the law, okay? You don't have that problem. I do.
No, okay. First of all, we're getting
Okay.
so far
off
base. Second of all,
I didn't want to have to respond, but I
No.
was accused.
okay.
I work for a nonprofit group. I'm the one that goes out and gets quotes for everything on them boats.
Okay, wait, hold on.
So to say
Let's-
I don't know what I'm doing, just
didn't
because
say that.
We're
I don't
done
own
with
the
this
oyster
discussion.
business. Well, you didn't mention Mr. LaFrance or Mr. Newsom or myself.
We're done.
That group that's so smart.
Ms. McCarty, Mr. Kognovich, we're getting off subject of the audit.
It's for the audit. What
Oh.
I said is the audit.
Okay. Is everybody done with their comments? May I make mine, and then can we close, please? All right. First of all, as regards to exit interviews, I agree with Mr. Juristich and somebody else, I forgot who at this point. I have text messages that clearly contradict why people left versus what was sent out last week. All right. I want to be very clear. This audit is disappointing. As an auditor, it's very disappointing. But as I mentioned earlier, the management responses to some of this is also very disappointing of, hey, we got what we wanted. Yeah, we broke the law, no big deal. Or we disagree. Or it's a repeat finding, we'll change our policy again. We're facing very serious issues that cannot be ignored or explained away. We were issued qualified opinion on the compliance report. As an auditor, that means it's material to that program. Mr. Clark, talk about laws and everything. Clear violations of federal procurement laws, findings 4, 7, 9, and 10. That is why I asked for the whole thing to be put up there, because it said so in the auditor's response. Breaches of state laws, finding 1, 3, 4, and 7. Failure to follow LLA best practices, 4 and 8. And to me, a blatant disregard of port policies from March of 24. Findings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10, and multiple repeat findings from last year. So to say it's not a gotcha moment, I agree with you. It's not. But to say last year, I think we had a total, if you look at it, 5 repeat findings out of the 11, almost half. I already talked about how we're not going to be a low-risk auditee for the next 2 years. That means more work, possibility, more findings in the future. More, it's going to cost us more too, because the auditor is going to bill us more because they're going to have to do more work. That's just part of policy. As for management response in the summary, we talk about not having the manpower. I went back to 2024's manpower, and for the core staff of the executive director, when I talk about core staff, I'm talking about the directors, I'm talking about basically non-classified employees. Our total salary, not including benefits, I'm talking about actual salary, was $751,000. As of right now, as of the last council meeting, we're up to over $1 million. That's a $262,000 increase, 35%. We're also adding the COO, which will then bring it to a 57% increase. We're still having the same problems. That's my concern, is we haven't said no to all your positions and pay raises and all that. We're trying to make this work, but we're still falling behind. Plus, we still have exorbitant amount of legal fees, external legal costs. Okay? Your comment about Port Nola, it's kind of insulting. You want to know why? Because my firm did Port Nola, has done Port Nola. To say we're not looking hard enough, those are the same people that I worked with for years that trained me to say we're not looking hard enough. We have certain guidelines we follow. We don't go looking. Now, as a CFE, as a fraud examiner, yeah, I go looking. But it has to be a fraud examination, not an audit. There's actually standards about over auditing. So to say that they're not auditing is kind of insulting, and also the comments along the lines of, and I've heard it multiple times, of the auditor's out to get me. Again, we don't want findings. Findings make us do more work, more documentation. Guess what, Ms. Skognovich? When I was a staff and senior, I was told to write everything up. That was my job. If I found something, write it up, because the partner made the determination if it was a finding and what type of finding, because that's part of their job is, okay, was it a one-off or was it a reoccurring problem? So again, I get your concerns about how that person is tied to different organizations, but my job was to write everything up and let the audit partner determine what was a finding. Now, as a manager, I had more say on what was finding and all that, but as a staff and everything, working my way up, that was the thing. So we don't go after individuals. We have professional standards, maintain independence, and we have to go into each audit as a clear mind says. I have former clients of mine that I don't like, but guess what? I had a job to do. I go in, select my sample, and test the sample. 90% of the time, no findings. But that doesn't mean I don't like the client. So to say that is really an insult to the audit profession. And again, as the email chain from last week, I find it insulting that we're trying to shift the blame to me because I'm an auditor and I should catch things. But first of all, because I'm chairman too, first of all, I wasn't chairman during the 2024 audit. But I also have proof that in 2024, I sent emails basically warning, saying, hey, we have to be on top of federal awards because we're going to be looked at. We're going to have basically a single audit, and it's a big deal. I told them also, I don't want findings. I also say that in this policy, that says that there's a waiver that the executive director can waive any policy in this policy, or any policy within this accounting policy. And I asked, point blank, why do we have this waiver in there? That's not normal. If the executive director can waive it, then why have a policy at all? So, again, going back to why people left, let's talk about the Sloan Group report. That to this day, as chairman, that I've requested, I don't know, probably 10 plus times, still have not seen an unredacted version of the report that we authorized and that we paid for. That says a completely different story. So, Ms. McCarty, please. What I'm concerned about, and again, it's not a I gotcha moment. I agree. However, it's a multiple repeat findings. What I'm really concerned about, oh, wait, and one other thing is, as part as chairman, I had signed this compliance questionnaire report as of June 1st, and multiple of these findings we knew about prior to June 1st. But in it, what I didn't know at the time, until the audit came out, provisions of bid law has been complied with. Yes, obviously not. Maintain our accounting records in accordance with legal compliance and preparation. Yes. In a timely manner. Yes. For the audit. And there's one more back here. Dealing with ports. Submitted our applications for funding as required. Yes. Well, we're very far behind on that. All project funds has been expended on the project and for no other purpose. We have question costs. Annual basis, we expended projects funds in accordance with the standards established by law. Yes. I had to sign this as chairman. As a professional in this field, now that I'm finding out that we weren't in compliance with a lot of this, and it hurts my professional credibility that I am chairman and I don't know what's going on. Multiple times, I'm finding things out from other commissioners when they call, hey, what's the status of this? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about because you called other commissioners before calling me or Mr. Newsom. I don't appreciate that because how am I supposed to respond to that? So to sit here and say that it's just not a big deal, it's not a gotcha moment, I disagree with. Well, I disagree with, I do agree that it's not a gotcha moment, but these are repeat findings in clear violation of state law, federal law. Let's be honest, the LLA is reviewing it, but we know the governor is for Port Nola. What's to say after the LLA reviews it, he doesn't assign a physical administrator to us? I mean, multiple findings, multiple material compliance issues. The governor at any point the governor has already made it clear he's for Port Nola. We see what has happened over the last week and a half with other agencies and stuff. What's to stop him from signing us physical administrator? That's what some of my concerns. So we have to take a deep look at this and say it's not just a one-off, multiple repeats. We gave all the resources we could. So I yield. Mr. Kognovich.
I agree. I never said they wasn't bad, but the worst thing I know about this audit, nobody brought it up today. When I met with Jamie Rogers, it wasn't public yet. 6 people knew about it. Ms. Glapion, Mr. Tillerson, Champagne, Schultz, Newsom, and Mitch Jurasich. When I went and talked to her, Bobby already knew about it. They called asking questions, specific questions that was in the audit. So how did it get out?
I can say not from me.
How did it get out? Because I keep saying that. If Bobby finds out something before me, it's something's wrong.
I agree with you.
And it always happens. I don't know how it got out, but Mr. Thompson called the office wanting to know specific questions about the audit.
You sure he needs something?
Why is he asking specific questions? The findings on the audit. Nobody should have knew about it, but 6 people and Jamie Rogers and me when she told me that.
Sorry.
I'm not going to take
I'm not saying it was you,
All right,
but,
okay.
well, everybody turned their paperwork in, but I could remember what she told me.
All right, Mr. Champagne, let's try to wrap this up in the next 5 minutes.
Thank you. I have to leave.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, we're
A couple of things you said, really, you're a professional auditor and take your profession very serious. I get it. I get it. Did you ever offer to help? Did you ever offer to help?
Yes, I have emails.
Hey,
where
hey,
send
I'm
my
speaking, I have the floor. I didn't have.
You asked me a
It's
question.
a rhetorical question. You can respond after, just like you did Ms. McCarty. I don't recall you going to say, hey, you need to look at this. And you made a comment, everybody knows sam.gov, you should check that. Did you ever ask what they're checking in? There are a lot of things you could have done as the chairman. You have a responsibility to do. Obviously, you just signed that document without really reading it. You just said it. I didn't. You said it. But again, the audit points, but you use that you weaponize that document. They clearly didn't. They thought they were doing all the right things. That's what the audit says. The audit says you thought you were doing the right things, but you were not. You pointed out. But then you're going to weaponize that document saying they somehow falsified something and you signed it. That's baloney. Mr. Chairman, you do better than that. And number two, about saying that that other commissioners speak to Charles more than you. I'm one of them. And you know why that is? Because I call him 2 to 3 times a week, just like I call the parish president 2 to 3 times a week. It's called keeping the lines of communication open. And I always close with, is there anything I can do to help you? Every time. With both of them. And I would recommend y'all try that, because we wouldn't have some of these problems that we're discussing right now. I yield.
Ms. McCarty.
Mr. Champagne and Mr. Schultz, I was asked to sign that very document last year when I was vice chair, but I refused. I was asked to bring it up to a resolution for everyone to vote on. And I said, no, I needed certain information first. And I was never provided that information. It turns out it didn't exist when I was told it did. And I forgot my other comment, so I'm just going to yield.
So, Mr. Champagne, yes, I did offer to help. I have emails. I sent the email to the whole commission where I have the document that I sent them all my red line edits to the document. I have another copy in my office where I also gave it to them in person. So, yes, I did offer to help. As chairman, I offered to help multiple times as the transition with Ms. Glapion. I said, if you all ever need any help with it, I have to watch what I do as governance, but if you have any questions, reach out. I have offered to help multiple times, and back in 2024, when I wasn't chairman or vice chairman or anything, I was using my expertise. As for the compliance questionnaire, it's not that I signed it without looking at it. It says a date of June 1st, that as of June 1st, but during the exit interview, the auditor made reference to that they found out about this in February or March or April, yet they still signed yes to the document. At the time, I didn't know. I'm not looking at every transaction. That's not my job as governance, first of all, because we pass policy, we pass ordinances, we pass resolutions and expect the staff to follow them. To not sign a contract for almost a year that we authorize, that clearly in this policy says after we vote on it, the executive director should sign it. Did you know that contract wasn't signed? Because that was in 2024. Okay. But you signed that same compliance questionnaire last year for last year's audit. Okay? Because we pass stuff in expectation of them to follow it. Now, this isn't a one-off either, because in 2023, we passed to exit declaratory judgment and to sign the contract. That wasn't signed for 3 months, almost, until we brought it up why it wasn't signed. Well, they're still being modified. How is it being modified after we voted on it? That was just kind of said, not a big deal. So, yeah, I signed it because I thought we were in compliance with everything. I thought I was told, yes. Am I supposed to know everything? I mean, yeah, I have some specialized training, but if I don't go in and look at every detail, how am I supposed to know that even one of the 50 invoices For the single audit section, automatically, if you get one wrong, it's a finding. It might not be material, but it's a finding. But guess what? That compliance questionnaire says we complied with everything. So there's no way I can know as a commissioner. Now, the other, I mean, we're talking about contracts and stuff not being signed in timely fashion or reimbursements and stuff. But what concerns me also is we're, like, let's use SP, for example. We were kind of forced out, and yes, Mr. LaFrance and Mr. Kognovich did not vote for it. I agree, before you even say anything. Yet now, does anybody know last week, SP CEO was indicted from the newspaper for the exact same thing that was questioned for us. Yet we were kind of, again, I'm no lawyer, so I'm going off from what legal counsel and the executive director and the deputy director at the time is telling me. Yet we find out that that wasn't probably correct. And again, Mr. Kognovich and Mr. LaFrance were the only two that voted for it. So at what point, voted against it. So again, did I help? I tried to. I have emails, I have texts, and I have documents in my office if you want to see it. I have 2 pages worth of notes on the accounting policy. Outright, half of it probably is dealing with federal procurement rules because I knew that was going to be a big issue. And I sent that to the email to everybody, and I have it right here actually, where I outright say, here are my edits as a professional, as an auditor, of what I would be looking at is if I came in and audited you, I would be asking these questions. And here's some other technical revisions. So again, yes, I did, but I can't catch everything. And I agree with you on some stuff that, okay, it's an oversight. You're not going to catch everything. But the multiple repeats and where it says multiple instances is the issue at hand. It's not just a one-off, because that wouldn't be material in most cases. It'll be a significant deficiencies or even a management letter comment. So I yield. Ms. McCarty.
The thing I wanted to mention before is that it feels like there's a double standard. On one hand, people are saying that Mr. Schultz should be providing advice. On the other hand, when I was vice chair, I was very frustrated that we were not doing things, standard practices in business, and things we were omitting that I started saying that what we needed to do. But I was accused of overstepping the line. It's a double standard. Do you want help or do you not want help? Do people want us to help or not to help according to our training? That's it.
Mr. Kognovich.
Glad you brought SP up, because I never seen that on the audit where we paid them and LA 23 $8 million before we got anything.
Well,
but and to say, and everybody up here can go to Charles and say, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. But when you move to the next seat, we can't tell them nothing. Civil service says it. We can't tell an employee what to do. So I can't go to Ms. Glavion and say, hey, I know accountant, I need you to do this. Or
exactly.
The lawyer, I need you to do this. I'm not blaming him.
He hasn't blamed me.
Okay.
But to say they're not going to, I can't go to them employees. The only employee I could tell what to do is my assistant. Can you print me this paper out? But that's it. I can't go to the grass cutter and say, hey, I need this grass cut. But again, SP was a great deal in the Gazette. LA 23 was a great deal in the Gazette. But it was never wrote up in the audit. Thank you.
Yeah, correct. You have never blamed me. And again, I agree with you. I can't tell anybody what to do, and that's why I have not told anybody what to do. I have offered help or advice, and that's it. But one last comment, it goes to a comment that public made about not being able to talk to commissioners and not being able to come to things, or the comments of this audit is actually for us. It is addressed to the Board of Commissioners. It is for us to learn and to make changes and to figure out what is wrong within the port or the agency, whatever. It's not addressed to management. It is not management audit, whatever. I found out that supposedly some were mad that we had the extra conference without management there. Again, it is addressed to us. It is not addressed to anybody else but the Board of Commissioners to make decisions on how to move forward with finances, with findings, with policy, whatever it may be, and to give a complete financial picture of the audit. So, and again, same thing on the parish side is addressed to Plaquemines Parish Council, not parish president. Any other comments before we adjourn?
I would say something about that.
You sure?
About the parish poll. Here we are killing him about this audit. Y'all gonna hold the parish company to.
I agree with you, but I disagree with you because we question a lot of things in public meetings.
Yeah, it got voted down.
What?
I had it the way he couldn't spend over $25,000 without coming up.
And we had a compromise that got voted 9-0.
I'll leave it.
All right.
I'm good.
Again, we can talk. Motion by Mr. Jursich, second by Ms. Koknovich. Roll call, please.
District 1 is absent. District 2? District 3?
Yes.
District 4? District 5? District 6 is absent. District 7 is absent. District 8? District 9?